Hey, what's going on, guys? Realm Gaming here, back into the video. Today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at the Holy Priest for Mythic Plus. This guide is going to cover specifically Season 1 on patch 11.05. So that kind of segues me into 11.05 changes for Holy Priest. And unfortunately, there's pretty much no changes to Holy Priest in 11.05 for either raid or Mythic Plus. We did get one small change here if we go to our Archon tree with Sustained Potency. If we look at the second paragraph here, so while out of combat or affected by loss of control effect, the duration of apotheosis is paused for up to 20 seconds. So that way, if you're in the middle of a trash pack and your apotheosis is up, Sustained Potency will actually pause or hold on to that apotheosis effect, and you'll be able to keep the remaining duration of it, and it'll start ticking again going into the next pack. So that's kind of nice, but outside of that, I mean, that's the only change that Holy Priest has gotten. So now the question is, why would we want to play Holy Priest? What does Holy Priest bring that a lot of the other healers don't bring? So one of the main things that Holy Priest does bring is this Mass Dispel here. So it's going to be really good for the Devour Affix. Mass Dispel will remove all charges or all applications of the Devour Affix. So that's really nice. There's also just a ton of other general use cases for using Mass Dispel in Mythic Plus dungeons. You know, you can remove any sort of magic effect with it. We also bring certain talents like Mind Soothe. This is a popular ability to use, especially like right before the first boss. There's a couple skips you can do in Mists right before the first boss. You can Mind Soothe some of the trash, and you can skip entire packs of mobs with this ability. So that is a kind of minor bonus to playing Holy Priest. Another really big one here is going to be our Power Infusion. So Power Infusion, when you bring a priest in general, whether that's Disc, Holy, Shadow, you get access to Power Infusion. You're just bringing a whole bunch of extra damage to your group. So really, one of the big differences between a good priest player and a bad priest player is staying on top of Power Infusion. This is probably the main reason that you're being brought to a group, is this spell here. So you really want to pair this with a big ability like a Combust on a Fire Mage, or just any sort of major offensive cooldown through one of your DPS players. Thankfully, somebody has made a weak aura for us to use. I'll put it in the description of the video, and it's just a good general reminder of, you know, when Power Infusion's off cooldown and somebody has used a big ability, it will kind of flash around their nameplates and say, hey, you used Power Infusion on this target. And it's very helpful to remind you to press the button, essentially. The other reason you might want to bring a Holy Priest is due to Power Word Fortitude. It's going to be our class buff, more stamina for the entire party, something you can't really complain about. So we do have some decent utility there. Now, for the play style of Holy Priest, really what we're going to be focusing on is strong single target burst healing. Now, we do have access, of course, to some AoE healing, but where Holy Priest really shines is going to be in our large heals, our large flash heals, and our Holy Word Serenity. So going forward in my guides, I'm going to assume that before you clicked on this video, you do have some basic knowledge of what your spells are. I'm not going to go into every single little spell. You know, you can go into your spell book here and figure out what flash heal is, what prayer of mending is. But what we will talk about is how to utilize those different spells in your rotation, and sort of talent synergy, and what you should kind of be thinking about in your general priority list. So one of the main spells that I want to bring your attention to is going to be a Lightweaver. This is going to be a very core talent for us. And the way this works is, I'll just read it out here. It's a passive effect. Flash heal reduces the cast time of your next heal within 20 seconds by 30%, and increases its healing done by 25%, stacks up to 2 times. So what this means is we can go back and forth between flash heals and heals. And what you can see here is I just casted 2 flash heals, and now I have 2 stacks of heal. And you can see in the top right, I have the Lightweaver effect. So our next heal is going to be reduced by 30%, and its healing is going to be increased by 25%. So we can cast these heals here, and we will get, you know, a whole bunch of quick, efficient healing by casting a mana efficient spell. Right, heal is going to be much more mana efficient than something like flash heal, and you'll actually get more healing throughput through these beefed up heals rather than just spamming flash heals. So, but that's only true if you are getting those Lightweaver procs. Now, something else you probably saw there was a couple of glowy bars next to my character, and that is going to be another core talent that we are running, and that's going to be called Surge of Light. So Surge of Light here is going to be in your priest tree. Just to read it out, your healing spells and smite have an 8% chance to make your next flash heal instant and cost no mana, stacks to 2. Okay, so we're able to get to proc again. You can see we got this little glowing light here, and this just basically means that our flash heal will be instant cast. When you see this, you can see our flash heal's glowing, so we'll just press it. It consumes the flash heal instant cast. Another spell I'm going to talk about here is going to be Divine Image, which is going to be at the bottom of our holy tree. Another passive effect. So when we use one of our holy words, we're going to summon this Nairu, and it's going to do a whole bunch of healing for us. So to show you what that looks like, we're going to press our holy word Serenity. We get this little image here that spawns next to us, and this will duplicate a whole bunch of our healing. It won't necessarily duplicate it, but it will cast a similar spell. So it's a great way to get extra passive healing out through our holy words. And then just to know, that will also work with our AoE holy word, Sanctify. So when we press Sanctify, the AoE ground effect, we can see it spawns as well. So the core gameplay that you're going to be doing is you're going to be just kind of rotating between 2 flash heals into 2 heals into holy word Serenity charges. Now, since we are on the topic of flash heal, and holy word Serenity, we can't talk about those 3 without talking about Serendipity. So this is going to be one of our passives. So when you cast flash heal or heal, the remaining cooldown on our holy word Serenity is going to be reduced by 6 seconds. Then there are some other effects with how it works with like Prayer of Healing. We're not using Prayer of Healing in this specific guide. That's more of a raid talent, so we're going to skip over that section. But the 3rd paragraph, when we cast Smite, we also get some CDR on our holy word Chastise. So again, going back to that core gameplay loop, what we're going to be doing is casting holy words. So we'll get rid of our 2 charges of holy word Serenity. Let's just spam some flash heals, and we can see the cooldown getting reduced of holy word Serenity by spamming all these different flash heals. And what was a 1-minute cooldown was now turned into like a 10-second cooldown. Okay, let's talk about our next spell that you're going to be casting on cooldown. That's going to be Prayer of Mending. It will take a little bit lower priority than the other spells, but when there's nothing to do, always make sure you're throwing out your Prayer of Mending. So what this is going to do is it's going to put a ward on an ally. It's going to heal them and kind of jump around between targets. And one thing that's really neat is since we were running the Oracle tree, your Prayer of Mending will also put I believe it's this one here. Yeah, Assured Safety. This will put a shield on that target that you cast Prayer of Mending on. So we can see here, I'll cast Prayer of Mending on myself, and now I get a Power Word Shield on myself. And I think that's really nice because Power Word Shield has kind of been a staple for priests for a very long time, especially like in Classic and previous iterations of WoW. So I think it's really cool that they're able to work Power Word Shield into just our base rotation. So you're going to make sure that you're pressing Prayer of Mending on cooldown. And then up next, let's talk about Divine Star. So you have 2 options. You have Halo versus Divine Star. So for the Oracle tree, we're going to be running Divine Star, but if for whatever reason you're running Archon, then you'll be taking Halo. So Divine Star, right? We just throw it out. It's going to do some damage, and it's going to heal allies in that path and damage enemies in that path. So kind of similar to like the Holy Paladin Dawnlight, if you're familiar with those sort of rays that go out, allies and enemies that pass through them, it damages one, heals the other. Then next we have our Holy Word Serenity, which is just basically going to be the opposite of, Holy Word Sanctify, which is going to be the opposite of Holy Word Serenity. Serenity is going to be the big single target Holy Word, and then Holy Word Sanctify is going to be the AoE version of that. So we press it. I have it at a cursor macro, so it's just going to instantly cast when I press it. But basically just does a bunch of AoE healing to enemies standing within your targeted circle. Okay, now let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that's going to be Premonition. I know a lot of people don't like to play around it, but it is still currently the stronger choice of the 2 for Mythic Plus, so that's why we're going to be covering it in this guide. And I actually have a weaker that makes this a little bit easier to use, because the problem with Premonition right now is it has 3 different effects, right? So we have Insight, Piety, and Solace. And the hard part about this spell is it's just sometimes difficult to remember which color icon is linked up to which specific spell. So if you're in the middle of a hard encounter and it pops up the red one, which means Insight, which is CDR, it's hard to remember with all the things going on your screen what the red Premonition means. Because you'll be in the middle of a fight and you're like, is the red one the shield? Is it the CDR? I can't really remember. So we have a weaker for this. So I'm not going to go over how to set this up. It works right out of the box if you want to import it. However, I do have a video on this. We already covered it. I will put it in the description of the video if you guys want to check that out and you want to set it up for yourself. But the thing that's nice about this is this is going to tell you, which charge is ready and available. So you see right now I have 2 charges of Premonition of Insight, and when I hover the icon, I don't know what that means. What's Premonition of Insight? Well, you can see here with this box, the Insight is going to be the CDR version of Premonition. So when I press this, you can see the CDR version is active. We can see that we have 3 charges of that. Our next 3 spellcasts are going to get shorter CDR, and the next one up is the heal version of this. So the heal version is where you can pump a whole bunch of single target healing into one target, and it kind of gets radiated out onto everybody else. But it also just does a flat healing increase as well. So it's just a pretty good button to press in general. So we can go in there and we can press that. And then we can see what is active currently is the heal. And up next is the big shield version of Premonition. So we can see the shield is about ready to use here in the next 4 seconds. So we'll just wait. And then we will use that. We can see that we have the big shield active. So our next single target heal is going to put the shield on a target. We can see we got the shield on us now. And then finally, the fourth version of this is going to be the CDR, the heal, and the shield, all three together through our clairvoyance. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about our priority. Like, what do we want to be focusing on? Like, we go into it, Mythic Plus pool, what buttons do we want to press first? So the first button you probably want to press is going to be your prayer mending, right? You're going to make sure that you're getting that shield up on the tank and that you're getting those prayer mending charges out. You're going to try to spread those out as much as you possibly can. Now, one thing to note with our prayer mending, we typically want to pair that up with our Premonition of Insight, and we'll just pop a clairvoyance here just to show you what that looks like. But what we can do is we can spam out these prayer mendings through that clairvoyance, through that insight charge, and we can just spam out a whole bunch of prayer mendings. You can see that they're up to 14 stacks. You can put that on different people, and you get a whole bunch of passive healing through that. So you want to try to pair that Premonition of Insight. Again, that's the red charge with the CDR with your prayer mending. Now, an alternative to that is we can also pair this with our Holy Fire for damage if we want. So we can see here we have another charge of Premonition of Insight ready for us to use. And let me go ahead and get my Holy Fire ready here. I have my macro up, but let me just put it over here. So what we can do is Premonition of Insight, and we can put that into all these Holy Fire casts and not incur that CDR or that cooldown on it. And we just spam 4 Holy Fire casts like it's nothing. And if you want, you can check out the description of the video. We have our Holy Fire macro that we talked about in other videos, but basically it's a Holy Fire into a Chastise into more instant cast Holy Fires. So if you want to check that out, go ahead and go down to the description of the video. You can just copy and paste it in and it'll work. So now let's talk about Premonition of Piety. That's the next one on the list. So this will be your next priority. So typically what you want to do is you want to pair this with your Guardian Spirit. And the reason you want to do that is because the way that this charge of Piety works is all the overhealing that's done on yourself is then dispersed out to your allies. So if you can pump a ton of single target healing just into yourself, it all gets evenly dispersed out and you can pretty much heal through any sort of encounter that's thrown at you. Now, the problem with this is, of course, it's a little bit difficult to pull off. So let's just read it out here. Guardian Spirit, it's on a 3-minute cooldown, so it can be difficult to get the 2 cooldowns to kind of align. And then not only do you have to get them to align, but you have to be at an encounter where that much damage is coming out to be able to utilize it. But just to read it out here, calls upon a Guardian Spirit to watch over the friendly target for 12 seconds, increasing healing received by 60%. If the target would die, the spirit sacrifices itself and restores the target to 40% health. So you're getting 60% increased healing on yourself. Then not only are you getting that, you're getting 28% additional healing on yourself through the Piety charge. And then all that overhealing that's on yourself is then dispersed out. So that's how we use Piety. And then finally, we have the final charge. So I'll just go ahead and show you how that Piety charge works. So you can cast it on yourself, Guardian Spirit, and then you can just go in between Holy Word charges, flash heals, and heals. And all that healing that's being done on yourself is then being dispersed out. Okay, then the final one I want to talk about, probably the most simple one, we can see that we have the shield up next. So the way that the shield works, let me just read it out. Yeah, just read it out here. Premonition of Solace. So your next single target healing spell grants your target a shield that absorbs 1.9 million damage and reduces their damage taken by 21% for 15 seconds. It's kind of like a built-in life cocoon if you're familiar with Mistweaver Monk. And basically all you do is you just press it, and then you compare this to something like a prayer mending, any sort of single target heal, and you're going to get that big shield around you absorbing all that damage. So little recap here. Your priority is going to be your premonitions first. Then from there, after you've handled your premonition charges, then you want to go into a prayer mending. You're going to make sure that's up. Make sure that we're spreading out those wards for that free passive healing. Then up next, we're going to focus on our holy words. So 90% of the time, you're going to be using Serenity. There may be some certain situations where you're using Sanctify over Serenity, but you want to make sure you're getting those on cooldown so that we can get CDR on them through our flash heals and heals. Your next priority is going to be a spell that we haven't talked about yet, our Apotheosis. It's going to be on a 2-minute cooldown. And the main reason you want to stay on top of this spell and using it frequently is to save mana. So reading it out here, instant cast, 2-minute cooldown, gain a charge of your holy words and enter a pure holy form for 20 seconds, increasing the cooldown reductions of your holy words by 300% and reducing their cost by 100%. So basically you're getting free, almost instant cast holy words that are just coming off cooldown at almost as quick as you can get them. And most of that is mana free. If you can, at the start of a pool, try and pop your Apotheosis. You're going to see that really help your mana over the long term of a dungeon. Then your next priority is going to be Lightweaver. So kind of like we talked about earlier, you're going to be alternating between flash heals and heals. Typically do 2 flash heals into 2 heals so that we can get that bonus healing and cast time on heal. Excuse me, that reduced cast time on heal. This is something else that's really going to play into your mana. And then also on a pretty similar priority level, maybe just below, is you want to make sure that you're spending your Surge of Light procs over here on the left. So those instant cast Flash of Light procs that will come up. And then one more spell, this is probably going to be like your final priority on the list that we haven't talked about, is Symbol of Hope. So this is going to be a spell that's normally thought of for its mana regen, but it has another part to it, and that's going to be CDR on your allies' major defensive spells. So if we read it out here, bolster the morale of raid members within 40 yards. They each recover 30 seconds of cooldown of a major defensive ability and regain 10% of missing mana over 3.7 seconds. So whenever you can, whenever you have free time, make sure you're pressing this button. You want to get as much CDR in those defensives as you possibly can, and then the passive mana regen is hard to argue with. So it is a channel cast, so you need to get that full channel off to be able to get all the value out of this spell. And then one other thing I do want to talk about is the dibs on power infusion weak aura. So we did kind of talk about this a little bit earlier in the guide, but the way this works is it's going to highlight an ally when they use a big offensive ability. So it's not good to use if you have people who are like very different in their gear threshold, because just for example, say you're pugging with somebody who's in all greens. This is going to pop up and say, hey, power infuse this guy who has greens on. He just used a major offensive ability. Well, he's in greens, right? We don't want to power infuse him. So typically, you're just going to be picking somebody to power infuse until you get into higher keys where everybody has similar gear level. Then you can start kind of listening to the weak aura and power infusing specific people. But the best part about this weak aura is it's just a reminder to press the button. You want to be on top of power infusion. It's a short cooldown. It's a 2-minute cooldown, and you'll make sure that you're pairing it with a major offensive ability that an ally is using. And of course, we cannot end the video without saying thank you to our patrons. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We'll see you on the next one.